I was stealing his dreams when I realized I used to live in them. The neural interface hummed against my temples as I dove deeper into the prisoner's mind, following the familiar pathways of extraction protocol. Target: Marcus Rivera, rebel leader captured 3 days ago after a raid on NeuroSyn's memory banks. My job was simple: pull his operational memories, find his contacts, dismantle his network. I'd done it 1,000 times before. But something was wrong. His memories tasted like copper pennies and morning coffee, like the scent of jasmine after rain. They shouldn't have meant anything to me. Corporate extractors were specifically conditioned to remain detached, clinical. Yet, as I navigated through his neural pathways, every synaptic flash felt like déjà vu. "Status report, Zara," Dr. Voss's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Initial penetration successful," I murmured, maintaining the professional monotone that had been drilled into me for 3 years. Accessing surface memories now. Through the one-way mirror of the extraction chamber, I could see Marcus strapped to the neural chair, his dark hair falling across his forehead. Even unconscious, there was something about his face that made my chest tighten, a sensation I quickly suppressed. The memory I was following suddenly bloomed into full clarity. Marcus in a small coffee shop, laughing as someone across from him complained about the bitter taste of their drink. The viewpoint shifted, and I caught a glimpse of small hands wrapped around a ceramic mug, nail polish chipped and familiar. My hands jerked away from the interface. "Problem, Agent Chen?" Voss's tone carried that edge it always did when she suspected weakness. "Just a minor feedback loop," I lied, reconnecting to the neural link. "Continuing extraction." But as I dove back in, the memories grew more vivid, more personal. Marcus walking through a park, his fingers intertwined with someone else's. Marcus leaning against a kitchen counter, arguing about whether to add cinnamon to pancakes. Marcus lying in bed, whispering to a figure I couldn't quite see, her face always just outside the memory's focus. The strangest part was how right it all felt, how the rhythm of his breathing in these memories matched something buried deep in my own chest. "You're beautiful when you concentrate," Marcus's voice suddenly cut through the mental static. I nearly fell out of my chair. He was awake, his dark eyes fixed on mine through the observation window, a sad smile playing at his lips. "That's impossible," I whispered. "The sedatives should keep you under for hours." "Should," he agreed softly. "But then, a lot of things about this situation are impossible, aren't they, Zara?" The way he said my name sent ice through my veins. Not the clipped professional pronunciation everyone used, but something warmer, more intimate, like he'd said it 1,000 times before. "I don't know what you're talking about." I reached for the sedative controls, but my hands were shaking. "You used to scrunch your nose exactly like that when you were confused," Marcus continued, his voice gentle despite the restraints. "Usually right before you demand I explain whatever ridiculous plan I'd concocted." "Stop!" The word came out harsher than I intended. "I don't know you." "No," he said quietly. "You don't. Not anymore. They made sure of that." Before I could respond, the neural interface sparked against my temples. Pain shot through my skull, and suddenly I was drowning in fragments that shouldn't exist in my mind. Laughing at something Marcus had said while rain pattered against a window. The taste of cinnamon pancakes, warm fingers tracing patterns on my back in the early morning light. A heated argument about memory ethics that ended with passionate reconciliation against a laboratory wall. "Zara!" Voss's voice snapped me back to the present. "Your vitals are spiking! Disconnect immediately!" I yanked the neural interface away, but the damage was done. The fragments were loose now, swirling through my consciousness like leaves in a windstorm. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to contain them. "I'm fine," I managed, though my voice sounded strangled even to me. "You're clearly not." Voss entered the observation room, her steel-gray hair pulled back in its usual severe bun. "Report to medical for a full neural scan." "But the extraction will continue tomorrow with a different operator. You're compromised." The word hit like a physical blow. In NeuroSyn, being compromised was the worst thing that could happen to an extractor. It meant unreliable results, potential security breaches, possible termination. As security escorted me from the chamber, I caught Marcus's eyes one last time. He mouthed something I couldn't quite catch, but it looked like "remember." That night, I sat in my sterile corporate housing unit, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The headaches had started the moment I'd left the facility, sharp spikes of pain that felt like someone driving nails through my skull. Every time I tried to focus on the day's events, those impossible fragments would surface. I reached for my regulation sleep aids, but hesitated. For 3 years, I'd taken them religiously, along with the daily cocktail of mood stabilizers and memory enhancers that all NeuroSyn employees received. Tonight, for reasons I couldn't explain, I wanted to dream. The dreams came like a flood. I was younger, maybe 25, standing in a laboratory filled with prototype neural equipment. Marcus was there, but he looked different, less hardened, more hopeful. We were working together, our hands occasionally brushing as we calibrated the machines. "The applications are endless," Dream Marcus was saying, his eyes bright with possibility. "We could help trauma victims, treat PTSD, even enhance learning capacity." "We could also rewrite people," Dream Me replied, and I could hear the concern in my voice. "Change who they are at the most fundamental level." "That's why we have to be the ones to develop it," he said, catching my hand in his, "to make sure it's used ethically." The scene shifted. We were in that same coffee shop from his memories, but now I could see it from my own perspective. Marcus was laughing at something I'd said, and the warmth in his eyes made my chest flutter with a happiness so intense it was almost painful. "You're staring," I heard myself say. "Can you blame me?" he replied, reaching across to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "I still can't believe you said yes when I asked you out." "That's because you asked while hanging upside down from a neural calibration rig." "I was stuck!" "You were showing off." The dream shifted again, darker now. We were in the same laboratory, but everything was wrong. Alarms were blaring, red emergency lights casting everything in hellish shadows. Marcus was pulling me toward an exit, his face grim. "They know about the research," he was saying, "about what we discovered." "The memory implants?" My dream self sounded terrified. "But they're not ready for human trials. The risks don't matter to them. They want to move forward anyway." We reached a doorway, but Marcus suddenly stopped, his hand on my cheek. "If something happens to me, don't." I pressed my fingers to his lips. "Nothing's going to happen." "If it does," he insisted, "remember that this was never about the technology. It was about keeping people free to be themselves." I woke with tears on my cheeks and the taste of copper in my mouth. The next morning, I arrived at NeuroSyn to find my security clearance had been suspended pending my medical evaluation. Instead of reporting to Dr. Voss, I was directed to a different floor, one I'd never seen before. The medical bay was all white surfaces and humming machinery. Dr. Elizabeth Crown, the facility's head neurologist, gestured for me to sit in a chair that looked uncomfortably similar to the extraction unit. "Just a routine scan," she assured me, fitting the neural interface to my temples. "Dr. Voss is concerned about potential contamination from yesterday's extraction." "Contamination?" "Sometimes, when an extractor interfaces with a particularly strong psychic signature, fragments can transfer. It's rare, but not unheard of." Dr. Crown's fingers danced over the control panel. "The good news is, if there are any foreign memories, we can remove them completely." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Remove them?" "Oh yes, clean slate, as it were. You'll be back to full operational capacity within hours." The neural interface activated, and I felt the familiar sensation of someone else moving through my mind. But this time, I was the one being extracted from. "Interesting," Dr. Crown murmured. "There's definitely foreign contamination here, but it's extensive. Much more than we'd expect from a single extraction session." I wanted to ask what she meant, but the neural probe was making it hard to think clearly. Instead, I found myself remembering the coffee shop dream, the way Marcus had looked at me with such tenderness. "Wait," Dr. Crown said, her voice sharpening. "These aren't contaminated memories. These are suppressed originals." The probing stopped abruptly, and I opened my eyes to find Dr. Crown staring at her readouts with alarm. "I need to contact Dr. Voss immediately," she muttered, reaching for her communicator. But before she could activate it, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Through the facility's announcement system, a familiar voice began speaking. Citizens of Neo Francisco, this is Marcus Rivera. 3 years ago, NeuroSyn Corporation began a program to create the perfect workforce, compliant, focused, and stripped of any memories that might make them question authority. Dr. Crown was frantically trying to reach security, but the communication systems seemed to be down. They called it Project Clean Slate, Marcus's voice continued. Volunteers were promised treatment for trauma, for addiction, for depression. Instead, they were turned into memory slaves, their personalities rewritten to serve corporate interests. I thought of my own recruitment story, how I'd supposedly volunteered after a family tragedy, though I could never quite remember the details. How perfect my life had seemed since joining NeuroSyn, how content I'd been with work that should have horrified any decent person. The woman extracting my memories yesterday was once Dr. Zara Chen, the lead researcher who discovered what NeuroSyn was really doing. She tried to stop them. Instead, they made her forget everything, including me. My heart stopped. But memories want to be remembered, Marcus continued, his voice carrying a note of hope. And love doesn't forget, even when the mind tries to. The emergency power failed, plunging us into complete darkness. In the distance, I could hear shouts, running footsteps, the distinctive whine of neural disruptors powering up. Dr. Crown grabbed my arm. "Stay close. We need to get you to a secure location." But I was already pulling away, the neural interface still connected to my temples. If Marcus was right, if I really had been a researcher, then somewhere in my suppressed memories was information that could help. "Dr. Crown," I said quietly, "activate the memory restoration protocol." "I can't do that. The risk of psychological fracture." "Do it." She hesitated, then her fingers moved over the controls. "If this kills you, I want it on record that it was your choice." The restoration protocol felt like being struck by lightning. Every suppressed memory came flooding back at once. 3 years of stolen experiences crashing into my consciousness like a tsunami. I remembered everything. My name was Dr. Zara Chen, and I had been NeuroSyn's lead researcher on ethical memory modification. I'd discovered that the company was planning to use the technology for mass population control, turning citizens into compliant workers by editing out their capacity for rebellion, creativity, independent thought. I'd tried to expose them. Instead, they'd used their own technology against me, turning me into the perfect memory extractor, someone who could steal thoughts without the inconvenience of empathy or moral qualms. And Marcus had been my partner in every sense of the word, my research collaborator, my best friend, my lover, the man I'd been planning to marry before NeuroSyn destroyed our lives. The facility's lights flickered back on, and I found Dr. Crown staring at me with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You remember," she said. "I remember everything." I stood up, yanking the neural interface free, including the fact that you were the one who performed my original memory wipe. Her face went pale. "Zara, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly." I moved toward the door. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" Before she could answer, the door burst open and Dr. Voss stormed in, flanked by security guards. "Where is she?" Voss demanded, then stopped short when she saw me. "Ah, Dr. Chen. Or should I say Agent Chen? I'm never sure which personality is dominant." "Neither," I said calmly. "I'm someone new, someone who remembers what you took from me but isn't broken by it." Voss smiled, a cold expression that never reached her eyes. "How poetic. It doesn't matter. Mr. Rivera's little rebellion will be crushed within the hour, and you'll be back in conditioning by tomorrow." "Will I?" I looked around the room, taking inventory of the medical equipment. "Tell me, doctor, how many people in this building have had their memories modified?" "That's classified. I'm guessing about 60% of your workforce. The loyal ones, anyway. The ones who never question orders, never wonder why they're helping to enslave their own species." I moved closer to the central control panel. "But what happens when they remember who they really are?" Understanding dawned in Voss's eyes just as I slammed my hand down on the facility-wide neural broadcast switch. The memory restoration protocol I'd been working on before my capture had been designed as a safeguard, a way to undo mass memory modification in case of emergency. NeuroSyn had kept it in their systems, probably planning to use it as leverage against their victims. Now, as the signal flooded through the building's neural network, reaching every modified employee, every memory slave, every person who'd been robbed of their true self, I felt a savage satisfaction. The effects were immediate. Through the facility's windows, I could see people in the courtyard suddenly stopping, their faces cycling through confusion, recognition, and then fury as they remembered what had been done to them. "You don't know what you've done," Voss snarled, reaching for her sidearm. "I've given people back their souls." The security guards flanking Voss suddenly looked uncertain. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, lowered her weapon. "Dr. Voss," the guard said slowly, "I remember you now. You told me my daughter died in an accident, but that wasn't true, was it? You took her for the youth program." Voss backed toward the door, but it was too late. All around the facility, the sound of doors being kicked open, of people demanding answers, of a revolution beginning echoed through the halls. I found Marcus in the detention level, no longer restrained, standing over the unconscious forms of his former guards. He looked up as I approached, and the smile that spread across his face was like sunrise after the longest night. "Hello, Zara," he said softly. "How do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment, taking inventory of the memories now restored to me, some painful, some beautiful, all mine. "Like myself," I said finally. "For the first time in 3 years, I feel like myself." He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, and then I was in his arms, breathing in the scent that had haunted my dreams without understanding why. "I'm sorry," I whispered against his chest. "For what I did to you, for not remembering—" "Hey." He tilted my chin up, his dark eyes serious. "You did nothing wrong. They stole you from yourself, but you found your way back. That's what matters." "Marcus Rivera," I said, letting my restored memories fill in all the gaps, all the stolen moments we'd shared. "You still owe me a proper first date." He laughed, the sound rich and warm and perfectly familiar. "After we saved the city?" "After we saved the city." The facility around us was in chaos now, but it was the chaos of liberation, of people waking up from a 3-year nightmare. Through the emergency broadcast system, reports were already coming in from across Neo Francisco. Memory slaves remembering their real names, their real families, their real dreams. NeuroSyn had created the technology to steal human identity. Now we were going to use it to give identity back. "There's something else," Marcus said as we made our way toward the facility's central computer core. "The Memory Liberation Protocol, it's not just affecting NeuroSyn employees." I looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "Every person in the city who's ever been treated at a NeuroSyn facility, everyone who's had their memories enhanced or corrected, everyone who's taken their medication." He gestured toward the windows, where we could see crowds gathering in the streets below. "They're all remembering." The scope of it hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about freeing a few hundred corporate employees. This was about returning stolen lives to potentially millions of people. "My God," I whispered. "How many people did they modify?" "According to the files I pulled during the raid, about 40% of the city's population." 40%. Nearly 2 million people, all suddenly remembering suppressed traumas, erased relationships, deleted dreams. Some would be grateful, others would be devastated, all would be angry. We reached the computer core just as the facility's main power systems began failing. Emergency protocols were shutting down non-essential systems, but I knew the neural network would have backup power for hours. "Can you hold them off?" I asked Marcus, nodding toward the sound of approaching footsteps in the corridor. "How long do you need?" I was already interfacing with the core systems, my restored knowledge of NeuroSyn's architecture making navigation simple. 5 minutes to upload the complete liberation protocol to every NeuroSyn facility in North America. "You've got it." The upload began just as Voss and a squad of corporate security rounded the corner. Marcus had found weapons somewhere, probably from the detention-level guards, and the firefight that erupted was brief but intense. "Zara!" Voss called out during a lull in the shooting. "You're making a mistake! These people were happy before. They had purpose, direction, peace. You're giving them back pain." "I'm giving them back choice!" I shouted in return, watching the upload progress bar crawl toward completion. 60%. 70. Choice to suffer, choice to struggle, choice to fail. Choice to be human, 80%. 90. A blast from a neural disruptor caught Marcus in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard, and I could see blood spreading across his shirt. "Marcus! Keep going!" he gasped, returning fire with his offhand. "Don't stop!" 95%. 98. Voss appeared in the doorway, her weapon trained on me. "Step away from the console, Dr. Chen." I looked at the progress bar. 99%. "Go ahead and shoot," I said calmly. "You're about 30 seconds too late." The upload completed just as Voss pulled the trigger. The neural disruptor blast never reached me. Marcus had thrown himself between us, taking the shot meant for me. He collapsed at my feet, his body convulsing as the disruptor's energy coursed through his nervous system. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Across North America, every NeuroSyn facility was broadcasting the Liberation Protocol. Millions of people were remembering who they really were, what had been taken from them, and who was responsible. I knelt beside Marcus, cradling his head in my lap. His eyes were open but unfocused, his breathing shallow. "Did we do it?" he whispered. "We did it!" I could hear sirens approaching, voices in the corridors calling for medical assistance. "The whole continent, Marcus. Everyone's going to remember." He smiled, that same warm expression I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. "Good. That's good. Stay with me," I said urgently as his eyes began to drift closed. "You promised me a proper first date, remember?" "Rain check?" he murmured, and then his breathing stopped. For a moment the world went perfectly silent. Then I heard Voss behind me speaking into her communicator, calling for extraction, for cleanup, for damage control. I stood up slowly, Marcus's blood on my hands, and turned to face her. "It's over," she said, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. "Your boyfriend is dead. The facility is lost, but we have other locations. We can rebuild." "No," I said quietly, "you can't." Through the facility's windows, I could see the crowds gathering in the streets of Neo Francisco. Thousands of people, all remembering, all angry, all demanding justice. Similar scenes were probably playing out in every major city on the continent. But more importantly, I could see something else. People embracing, recognizing each other for the first time in years. Families reunited, lovers rediscovering their connection, artists remembering their passion, scientists recalling their ethics. NeuroSyn had tried to create a perfect society by removing everything that made us human. Instead, they'd created a generation of people who understood exactly how precious those messy, complicated, beautiful human qualities really were. "They'll tear down every facility," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "They'll hunt down every executive, every researcher, every person who participated in this atrocity. And they'll remember this day as the moment they got their souls back." Voss raised her weapon again, but she was shaking now, the weight of millions of restored memories and the fury they contained pressing down on her. "You think you've won?" she snarled. "You've condemned these people to lives of pain, of struggle, of being human," I finished. "Yes, I have." The shot never came. The facility's main door burst open, and Marcus's rebel team poured in, followed by hundreds of newly awakened citizens. Voss disappeared in the crowd, though I somehow doubted she'd get far. I knelt beside Marcus again, taking his still warm hand in mine. Around us, the revolution continued, but for this moment it was just the two of us. "I remember everything now," I whispered to him. "The coffee shop, the laboratory, the night you asked me to marry you. I remember saying yes." His hand was already growing cold, but I held it tighter. "I remember the morning they came for us. How you tried to protect me. I remember the choice they gave me. Watch them kill you or voluntarily submit to memory modification." The memory was crystal clear now, no longer hidden behind corporate conditioning. Voss explaining that they needed my expertise but couldn't risk my moral objections. Marcus in restraints, a gun to his head, my choice simple. Forget him and work for them, or lose him forever. I'd chosen to forget. It had seemed like the only way to keep him alive. "I thought I was saving you," I continued, tears flowing freely now. "I thought if I played along, if I became what they wanted, eventually I'd find a way to free you both. I never imagined they'd keep you prisoner for 3 years, using you as bait." Someone knelt beside me, Dr. Crown, her face streaked with tears of her own. "He's not dead," she said quietly. I looked up at her sharply. What? The neural disruptor. It induces a death-like state, but it's temporary. He'll wake up in a few hours, probably with a hell of a headache. Hope blazed through me like wildfire. I checked Marcus's pulse and found it there, faint but steady. Why didn't you tell me? Dr. Crown managed a shaky smile. Because I wanted to see if you'd choose love over revenge when you thought he was gone. The old Zara would have. The NeuroSyn version might not have. I understood. Even with my memories restored, there had been a question of who I really was now. The idealistic researcher, the compliant extractor, or someone entirely new forged by the experience of being both. And what's your verdict? You're still you, she said simply. Changed, maybe stronger, but still you. I looked around the facility, at the celebration taking place as people hugged and cried and rediscovered themselves, at the rebels coordinating with newly awakened security guards to secure the building, at the crowds outside growing larger by the minute as word spread. What happens now? I asked. Dr. Crown helped me lift Marcus onto a medical gurney. Now we have work to do. There are millions of people out there who've just remembered years of stolen time. They're going to need counseling, medical care, help rebuilding their lives. She paused, looking directly at me. And they're going to need researchers who understand both the technology and the ethics, people who've been on both sides of the memory modification process. I thought about it as we wheeled Marcus toward the medical bay. Outside, I could hear chanting, the sound of a city waking up from a long nightmare. The real work was just beginning, not just tearing down NeuroSyn's empire, but building something better in its place. Dr. Crown, I said as we entered the elevator, do you remember what you were before NeuroSyn modified your memories? She was quiet for a moment. I was a trauma counselor. I specialized in helping victims of abuse rebuild their sense of self. Sounds like you're going to be busy. We all are. The elevator doors opened to reveal the medical bay, now bustling with activity as doctors and nurses, many of them probably remembering their true calling for the first time in years, treated the wounded from both sides of the conflict. As we settled Marcus into a recovery bed, I felt his hand squeeze mine weakly. Zara? His voice was barely a whisper, but his eyes were open and focused. I'm here. Did I miss anything interesting? I laughed, a sound that felt rusty from disuse but wonderfully real. Just the complete collapse of corporate memory slavery and the beginning of a new era of human consciousness. Damn, he said with a weak grin. I always miss the good parts. Don't worry, I said, leaning down to kiss his forehead. I have a feeling the good parts are just getting started. Through the medical bay's windows, I could see the sun setting over Neo Francisco, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. In the streets below, millions of people were experiencing sunset with their real memories, their true selves, for the first time in years. It was going to be messy. It was going to be complicated. People would struggle with the pain they'd been protected from, the difficult truths they'd been shielded from, the hard choices they'd been spared from making. But they would be free, and sometimes freedom is worth any price. Marcus's hand tightened around mine, and I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Not as the people NeuroSyn had tried to make us, but as the people we'd chosen to become. The memory thief had given back more than stolen thoughts. She'd returned the most precious thing of all, the right to be human.